in former Lieutenant General in the Israel Prison Service, former Commissioner, and also Yossi Mizrachi, head of the HaMevaker news program on Channel 12 News, and MK Yoav Segalovich, former Deputy Minister for Internal Security from Yesh Atid. Thank you very much. The matter of Homeland Security, the IPS at the Herzliya conference, we talk about this every year, and in the last 2 years we have set up a very large and respectable forum of commissioners and high-ranking officers in the police talking about Homeland Security and which strategies should be developed and built in order to improve the way the police works and also the rest of the other systems, and we talk about that a lot. And this session is about, we were supposed to have other people here as well, including MK Yoav Segalovich, but they are all voting in Knesset, so we only have Orit, Adato, and Yossi Mizrachi with us, and so he said he was sorry that he could not be here. And there is a lot of knowledge here on this stage, and we can see why the results of the survey are the way they were. I want to give a sort of framework. Before we hear you, we know it's nothing new that the feeling of personal safety is very low. The level of crime in Israel is soaring, it's constantly increasing. We see how many have been murdered in Arab society. Just yesterday and today, the number of explosions and murders is breaking every record possible, and we're analyzing the data, by the way, in the Israel police, and I'm saying this is data that has been presented in previous conferences as well. How many officers are in the Israel police? How many are missing? How many are we still missing? Do we still need to hire? And there are fewer police officers in Israel than there should be in comparison with the population. And since Ben Gvir has entered office, there has been huge cuts in the training of police officers. It used to be 2 years before you put a police officer on the ground. Now it's just a few months or even weeks. So ultimately we're all feeling this. Many are resigning, and compared to the rest of the world, compared to any country, I'm not talking about, emerging third world countries, but we have very few officers per capita. And I want to start with you, Yossi. You are so well vested in this area. You've so experienced, you know so much about this world, the world of police, and of course also the world of crime. And of course you're not in crime. I don't want anyone here to misunderstand. He covers crime and he covers police. So how did we reach this point? I hope you can hear me. The main tendency is to blame the right, to blame Ben Gvir. He's responsible, it's his fault. The chief of police is weak, but you have to be fair and to look back. First of all, it's a job that nobody wanted in the police, in the government. Being the Minister of Homeland Security or Internal Security or the Minister of Police, no one liked this job because people said that you can't win, you can't do well. Ohana got there by mistake, and so did Gilad Erdan. It's a terrible image going back years and years. The salary is low, especially compared to their counterparts. If you compare it to the ISA, if you compare it to the fire department, and sometimes there are combined patrol cars with a municipal supervisor, an inspector, and a police officer, and the one from the municipality earns so much more. And they're sitting in the same patrol car. So it's a process that's taking a long time improving that. And even on the personal level, when you meet officers, senior ranking or lower ranking officers over the years, you can see it in your eyes. You can see how this generation is changing, not only in age, but in style, in quality. I used to sit with people, the retired ones who you could listen to, who think deeply. And now you have chiefs of district who think very narrowly. And the problem is I don't think they can do things differently. And it just shows you where the population is fleeing. And what's happened in recent years, the last 4 years or so, is everything I've said, but twice as hard. Complete chaos. And what's most important is disconnecting the achievements and the capabilities that lead to achievements and promotion. There's no connection. You don't have to be successful. It doesn't matter if you are a great intelligence officer or a great commander or a chief. At the end of the day, if they need someone who is more fascist or more Ben Gvir-like in Tel Aviv because they need to hit, as he's told everyone, deliver blows, so never mind, we'll take someone who will be appointed somewhere and who was bad somewhere, and then also we'll put them in Tel Aviv. And the officers, the lower ranks, they understand that they need to be identified with someone or they need to be good friends with someone, and that's how they can be promoted. So it's loyalty over professional. Yes, let's start from the top. Police data, just as you've said, among the district commanders for I think 2024, the district commander with the worst data, the worst results, the worst statistics was Dani Levy. He was the head of the Shore. And then he became chief of police. So you don't have to be good, and if you don't have to be good, you'll do less. You'll, be kinder to the people who are the ones calling the shots. And you can see it. And in Arab society, it's much worse, and it goes back far longer. Orit, okay, you have a different perspective. For many years, you've been in the military world, but also mostly as the commissioner of the Israel Police Prison Service, and you know the data about crime and the inability to perhaps counter it. So how did we reach this point? Is this working? Maybe we'll soon talk about how we can do things differently. Look, any job, any role should be based on the right kind of training, on professionalism and on integrity. Certainly in the more senior ranking positions, what Yossi has just described is a reality that unfortunately we are seeing in the day-to-day, which means that if being promoted has nothing to do with training, not just training, it's not even to do with experience, operational and otherwise, has nothing to do with being professional, has nothing to do with being with having integrity, because being in a higher ranking position, you have to be professional, have professional integrity and personal integrity. You need to be able to maintain your professional backbone, and when this is irrelevant, you slip down the slippery slope and end up where you are today. And it's not just that. It's also the matter of how this position is perceived by the public. So in the Israel Prison Service, I can tell you that when I got there, I'm already archaic, I'm so outdated. I was there 25 years ago. But I came from the IDF, and I did an international survey to find out what the public thinks about, in favor or against the Israel prison services, the prison services in the world. And quickly I realized that nobody likes us. They are the backyard, and the worst backyard. It's like the outcome of all the law enforcement systems. So okay, let's maintain professionalism, responsibility, and professional and personal integrity, and that is really the light that we follow, the value that we follow. And right now we are seeing conduct. And as Yossi is saying, it's trickling downwards. And I can tell you from a personal point of view, I have a very close relative who serves as an officer at a wonderful unit, and the things I've been hearing from him is great frustration. It's so hard. It's really hard. Now, when I talk about how we've gotten to where we are and the public trust, the public is looking not only at the Israel police, but it's looking upwards, and it's wondering who in the public system can we trust? And the truth is that we've been in a war for 3 years. In a normal country, any government office or ministry has an emergency plan. It needs to have an emergency plan for various situations. And so when this happens, the directors generals of the ministries all sit together under the Prime Minister's office and come with the plans and adapt them to the situation at hand. Has that happened in the last 3 years? Not at all. So when you look up, it's not just the Israel police, it's everyone there. It's all the professional agencies that should be providing the service don't know how to do it. And there's a reason why it was said in the previous panel that civil society has actually taken on the job of the public sector. And it's not as if the public sector itself is terrible. It's just that, slowly but surely they've made sure that the good professionals will be taken out, and instead people will come in their stead who are, loyal before they are professional, as you've said. And then, when the going got tough, in real crisis, they are not terrible people. They're just not the right people. They have not been trained properly. They're not well qualified. And that's how we got to where we are.
So, to follow up directly on what you said, and I'd like to refer this to the two of you, one of the topics that came up in our discussions in that Forum for Homeland Security, that surprisingly enough, there is no strategy in Israel, not on homeland security and not for the Israeli police and not in combating and fighting crime. And the only time that the government plan, or the last time a government plan was presented, was with member of Knesset Segalovich that presented the plan, and then somebody stopped it. But there is no strategy of building police stations, of how many police officers we need, and the division of powers between the enforcement authority. Is the Israel Prison Service built to take in the number of criminals in the state of Israel? In parentheses, perhaps, probably not. We all know that. Can the prosecution work with that? And if the state of Israel is willing to think about alternatives to imprisonment, yes, is it willing to think about the strategy for the next few years? And if so, what is that strategy? What needs to be done for it to look differently? Well, it's important to say, Segalovich isn't here, so we can praise him. They had a plan. They started in 2022. I think it started to operate a safe track, a certain track, to take not an elliptical table, but a round table, and to place all the possible representatives of all enforcement agencies in Israel, whether it's the municipal veterinarian and the Israel Electricity Corporation and the tax authority. It's relevant to VAT and income tax, the police, anybody who has information, to be around that table in order to take on the crime families in an organized way. They met on a weekly basis, then a bi-weekly basis. There was some success. Segalovich and his colleagues, the reporters would laugh about it. They kept repeating it, that they would... they were really strict about it, and it worked. You can see, as of 2021, a significant drop in the number of homicides and different types of crimes that are categorized. And you could see that the method works, that they correct and they review, and where there's a problem, and when they take on a crime family as one entire unit, and not for the northern district to take care of that part and another district to take care of another part. But then the Minister of National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir, came, and he didn't want the JDC to help and contribute, and he took out some others as well. He wanted to invest in other places, so that changed. How do you know that there is no strategy and nobody's really looking forward? It's very easy. Just follow the announcement. Whenever the Prime Minister's office issues an announcement about an urgent meeting, and the Prime Minister instructed to convene a committee led by 2 or 3 three people, him and Roy Kachlon or whomever, about what? About crime in the Arab society, as if it was born this week or yesterday. All of a sudden there's crime. You know, we make comparisons with previous announcement or press releases. It's more or less the same wording, just with a different date. So, okay, he'll appoint a committee. Now it's Kachlon. Last time it was somebody else. It's the same problem. And, you know, except for the ones who are killed, today it's Abu Kleb and Hariri. We follow the changes. These are the only changes we see. Who killed whom and disappeared. And beyond that, the data is horrific. I don't know if that would mean anything to the general population. Out of 100 homicides in the Arab society, the percentages of, solving the crime, that's about 4-point-something%. That means there are 95 murderers who murdered during these years, and they're walking around free. Nothing happened. They weren't even arrested. And then you ask the investigators, look how many homicide cases I have in the past. Let's not go 100 years back, but 5 years back. Whenever there was a homicide, the police station would shake with fear that the district commander would call and reprimand here. They would have, they established special investigative teams, and now they tell you, I cannot reach this homicide because I already have 2 new homicides from this week. We don't have enough manpower. The number of people, it's about, there's a shortage of about 2,000 police officers in the Israeli police. It varies. Ben Gvir said, I brought a lot to the National Guard, but he keeps forgetting that car accident investigators are disappearing. Investigators of a more deep crime, we don't have that. Why? Because you need more intelligent people there, and they have other options, so they leave. Whom do they bring instead of them? About 18 months ago, I had made this series about the Israeli police. And we worked on it for several months, and you see how they recruit new police officers in Bat Yam, for example. What are the requirements? The requirements are 12 years of schooling. That's at best. If you don't have that, Bedouins, new immigrants, 11 years. So they give them kind of a crash course in the police college in Bet Shemesh, and then they can join the force. If that's the quality of manpower, what kind of a police officer will we see who comes to give you service? What officers do we have in the future in about 5 years' time? Who's going to get there? And along with all the other things you've explained earlier, this is a recipe for a collapse. We're already there. Simply, most of us don't have direct contact with the police, but whenever something happens, people no longer call them. And this is why we're looking at car accidents or car thefts, auto thefts, because there people have to report because of the insurance. So you can see in other cases, high percentages, are not reported. A lot of people aren't even aware of the fact that in the Arab sector, they say that, the Arab sector is to blame because that's their culture. But most Israeli Arab citizens are they are desperate for help. They really want Israeli police to get into this and stop all the shooting. But the Israeli police doesn't go there for various reasons. Look, it's not just that for the Israeli police to enter. We should have a holistic plan, if we're talking about the Arab sector, that takes into account elements of education and prevention. And by the way, this is an issue that's not even on the agenda. Should they give the instruments, the tools to mayors, as we see in other cities in the world, so that they will have their own municipal police? Because the mayor, let's put it differently, when the national leadership or state leadership doesn't deliver, that's to say the least, then those who enter the picture, it's the civil society, but also the local authorities. The mayors know exactly what's happening in their towns and cities. Often they're threatened, and you're very familiar with that. Sometimes maybe because they're so fearful or because of the bribe they get, they are involved in that. Let's not tarnish the mayors, but because there are so many, they have the know-how and a great leadership skill, at least many of them, so that maybe if we give them a bit more tools, then the results will look a bit different. The cooperation of the citizens, one of the arguments of the police, and you're very familiar with that, they don't cooperate. We come and nobody's speaking, and they cleaned up the scene. It's true, it happens, not always, but it does happen. But why don't you check why it happens? And perhaps if we manage to establish trust among the people there towards their local leadership, then there will be better cooperation. I've never heard of anyone even trying to do that. And let's go back about 20 years ago, or a bit more than that. And the fact, I really think that we would have needed to have a mayor here as the head of the commissioner of the prison service. I went to the local authorities center and I said, hello, my name is X and Y. I have responsibility for what happens between the four walls, but you have a much greater responsibility. The criminals come from your towns and cities and villages, and then they return to your community. The victims live in the community. The families are in the community. Let's do something together so that there will be some kind of a process that, when a prisoner comes out or is released, what we did inside the prison will have some follow-up later. Certain local authorities did rise to this challenge, and they did it exceptionally well. I admit that I failed when it came to the Arab local authorities because it was very political, and I couldn't reach the welfare departments in those places where we can act with. And then I said to them, right now, you don't really care about it, but you'll reach a situation that it'll become critical for you, and regretfully, we're at that place. And before you say something, in the absence of that power that's supposed to be given to the local authorities, those who enter their shoes are the crime families. They become, the mediators and the judges and the enforcers. I'll say a few sentences, just one sentence, please. I saw that the police spokesmanship is now saying that criminals are disrupting investigative measures, cleaning up the scene. What, they were born yesterday, the criminals? We didn't have criminals in the 1960s or 70s. What do you expect? Somebody who murdered to keep the murder scene as it is and invite the police? No, they're supposed to commit a crime and conceal it, but for the police to complain about the fact that there were criminals, it's insane. Look, it's not just criminality in the non-Jewish sector. Why don't you look at what happens among Jewish young adults, teenagers in our cities, both mixed and unmixed cities, and the fact that they reach a situation that 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, sometimes even younger, who don't even meet the bar for a criminal law, they are recruited or they grew up in such a way and they commit terrible, terrible crimes, robbery and homicide, and you name it. And who's doing anything about it? Who's saying, okay, we need to do something more systemic here? The law enforcement on its own cannot resolve this. It has to be a strategic plan that includes everything, including the Ministry of Education and the Welfare Department and everybody. Otherwise, we won't reach anything. That comes to show that ultimately, in order to reduce the scope of crime and increase the sense of safety and security among Israelis, we often complain to the Israeli police and the Israel Prison Service and the attorneys and everything, but we don't have enough police cars and cops, and not enough training, not enough prison cells, not enough prosecutors, not enough of the state prosecutor's office, and we have less enforcement, and that's the outcome of an absence of policy. I'd like to thank you, Yossi. I'd like to thank the two of you, Orit, for participating. Just one last sentence, please. One positive thing that Ben Gvir did, I travel a lot in the Arab society, in their villages. I have a lot of friends from that sector. The only good thing, and we'll see that in October, the only good thing he did, it's the first time that a government minister managed to convey to the peripheral Arab society that there's a connection between their lives and the Knesset in Jerusalem, between their lives and the fact that they didn't go to vote last time. They rely on the fact that the crime rates that have gone up, and Ben Gvir will bring them masses. That's not what he meant. But if they'll all go to vote in October, it will be thanks to Ben Gvir. So there's a positive aspect. He didn't intend for that to happen, but thank you very much. I'd like to thank you both.